Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday morning tea time with Atlas. We're trying something a little bit different today. I realized that it's getting dark or staying dark later, so we did a little bit of lighting for today's session, and Atlas is doing really well with the change. So I can turn my camera here, and you can see we've got a great big light shining at us. One of the fun things about filmmaking is playing with lights. So a little different today. It's going to hopefully not affect Atlas at all, but I have given him a little extra hay here, a little extrinsic motivation to tolerate something new. This is the thing that I love about working with horses is you really get to play with as many different varieties in their life as you can imagine. And that ability to just show up and see what happens, see how they feel about it. Today, I thought I would talk a little bit about movement. Obviously, we are sitting here, Atlas is eating breakfast, I'm drinking tea. There's not a lot of movement here. We're just being casual and peaceful together. And that's the kind of time I enjoy most with horses. I like the casual, peaceful time. But over the years, I have come to respect how important movement is and how vital it is to their well-being. When horses don't get enough movement, you get more reactionary behaviors, more fight, more flight, more freeze. Everything in a horse was designed to take a bite of food, walk a couple of steps, take another bite of food, walk a couple other steps. Those walking of steps between every bite of food is something they were designed for. It's something that is vital to their well-being. And, we bring them into the domestic world and we can give them food that's of higher nutritional quality. We can give them food more consistently than they get in the wild. We can make sure they have water more consistently. A lot of things that are good for their health. But one of the things that drops out of the equation in the domestic world is we lose the movement that is so vital to them. Now, for those of you guys who ride, and for me, I ride some of my horses, that definitely makes a difference. When we ride, we give them a certain amount of exercise, but it's a different kind of exercise. It's not the step, eat, step, eat, step, eat that their body's designed for. So this is a puzzle that I've been working on for a long time. I know that movement helps them. The more that they move, the more they're able to give really rational responses. They're able to think and yield and play instead of fight or flight or freeze. This is something that drove the goal for the movie, which will be out in a couple of weeks, Taming Wild Pura Vida. We crossed a country with horses. We took 2 rescue horses and we thought, what if we train in movement? What if we do all of our training on a trek from one ocean to the other ocean in Costa Rica? How does that movement affect our ability to develop new thought patterns in these rescue horses? It's a really interesting question, and I loved working with it and finding it out. I'm back here on San Juan Island. I've got Atlas and Ari out in the other paddock. And as 2 stallions, I can't just turn them out in the big field with all of the herd and the mares. And I am a little stuck as to how I make sure and provide them enough movement so that they feel really healthy and they're able to give me their best emotional responses possible. So I bring this up this week because it's been an incredibly busy week. With the movie almost done, there's so many last minute details. I've got a webinar coming up today at noon. I hope you guys can come. So there's been a lot of time on the computer this week. There hasn't been as much time with the horses. And one of the things I do every day is I spend time with Atlas and one of my geldings, Ocasio, and they walk together. I sit in the middle of the round pen and read my book, and I set it up so that they are walking, and they're walking for a good hour. It's not the natural kind of walking where they would do in a pasture where they would eat and walk, but at least it's steady and consistent and rhythmic. This has been one of the biggest breakthroughs for Atlas. On a week when I get busy and there's less time and I don't have time to go sit with him and cause him to walk, he gets a lot more flighty. You'll notice this week as he's eating hay behind me, there's a little bit less expression in his ears and his eyes than there was last week. Part of that's possibly because of the light I put on us, and he's a little bit more stressed from the environment. But part of it also is just the whole week leading up to this. When there is less movement in Atlas's life, he is going to become a little bit more reactionary, a little bit more defensive, and a little less relationship oriented. Now, I think I've got a bee joining me here. Hello, bee. I think that the goal of training is hopefully to help the horses find habitual patterns in thinking and yielding and playing and positive responses to connection instead of reactions and defenses. And when we make those so normal, the horse can reach for them even when their life is maybe not as healthy as it should be, when they're maybe not getting as much movement as they ideally naturally need. They can still reach for connection. They can still reach for those positive behaviors. I just wanted to bring it up because I don't think we talk about it enough. You know, Atlas is here eating hay behind me. He's got a pretty locked, frozen self-expression going. Those ears are not moving a whole lot today. This is my first clue that I'm going to have to tailor my training to be a little bit more broken down when he's in a mental state like this. I'm going to have to ask smaller questions. I'm going to have to ask more carefully. I'm going to have to be better with my feel and my timing. Hello, good morning. A little moment like that is golden for him. The more he can move his ears, move his eyes, be interested, be engaged, the better training is going to go. And my job is to notice what frame of mind he's in before we even start training. How likely is he going to say yes to the things I ask? How much smaller do I have to break things down if he woke up on the wrong side of the bed and he's a little bit more frozen than usual? So these are things that are really important to see. Donna says, watching you literally from below the English Channel. How fun. I'm so glad you joined us, Donna. It's really fun doing these Facebook Lives. I could just sort of jump on and see everybody from around the world and tell you a little bit what's going on in my life. As always, I do hope you guys ask questions. Tell me things you want to hear me talk about. If I don't get any, I've always got something to talk about. Atlas is always giving me lots of food for thought. I will tell you, I'm going to do this webinar today at noon about the bank account of the relationship, and I'm really excited about it. I spent most of the night setting up all the slides and getting everything ready. Hi, Andrea. I'm glad you're here from Costa Rica. Nicole, wonderful to see you here too. So, Andrea says, how to help Atlas move. So, you know, my first choice of the way to get Atlas to move would be to put him with other horses that inspire movement. Unfortunately, I found out that he has a pretty dramatic rebound when he feels irritated by other horses, and he's hurt a couple of horses rather dramatically. So there's only one gelding I'm comfortable leaving him with when I'm not in supervision. If I'm with him, I will put others in with him and supervise the fact that they move through any stress instead of turning it into fight. Nicole says, how do you make Ocasio and Atlas walk for that hour? So I, big sigh, and the ears are starting to move. Good job, Atlas. Yes. He's starting to come out of his bubble a little bit. When I'm in the round pen, I have the fence to push them against. And this is a very good extrinsic motivator. It's why we have round pens. And when I have the fence to push them against, it doesn't take very much with the swing of a rope to get them moving. Atlas really, really, really wants me to just sit down and not put any pressure on him. He's very, very sensitive to pressure. And so, all I have to do is pick up my rope and Atlas will instantly start moving. Now, Ocasio he's very herd oriented. If someone else is moving, he's moving too. And he's done a lot of round pen work in his life before he became my horse. So he's very accustomed to the round pen. So I pick up my rope, I look at them, I might swing it at them a little bit, they start walking, I sit down in my chair, I read my book, and they keep walking. If they stop, hi Atlas, I will stand up again, swing my rope a little bit, and then sit down again. So that motivator of the rope and the round pen is for right now what I'm using to get movement going. It's not my first choice. It's certainly not freedom-based training. But I have found with Atlas being a rescue horse and having so much trauma in his past, the movement in his life is key to him being able to respond instead of react. If he can move enough, he is not so worried. And if I miss a couple of days and I don't help him move, what happens is he stands most of every day at the hay net. We have several hay nets, but he'll pick one and not move. He'll just stand at one hay net and eat. And the one horse that I can keep him with that doesn't fight with him doesn't cause him any movement. So the two of them just stand. This is an interesting problem in the domestic world that I think we need to be aware of. The more you can have track systems, the more you can have herds, all of these things help in movement. I'm a little stuck with Atlas, being that he's a stallion with a highly aggressive streak. So I'm having to be creative in other ways that I can help him move. Andrea says, how long is it taking on average for his focus changes these days? I know in the past it was a long time that he would stay and freeze. Again, that's something that varies depending on how much movement he's getting. If he has, an hour of walking every day really consistently, his focus changes come a lot more frequently. When he is on his own in the paddock or he's with his one older gelding friend who is very relaxed. I do find if he's walking a little bit every day, he does tend to walk away from his hay net more. He does tend to go stand at other parts of the paddock more. And this is something I can see because my house is right in his paddock. If I miss some days and I don't help him walk, it's like the worse it gets, the worse it gets. The more he just stands, the more he freezes up, the more his ears stop moving, and then the slightest sound will startle him and he will almost fall down as he tries to flee from the sound of a raven calling overhead or something that shouldn't bother him at all. So if I can cause some movement every day, it really seems to settle his nerves, and then his ability to respond to the world instead of react to the world becomes much greater. Now, I'm hoping through training, through habitual conditioning, we can develop his responses in his ability to see what is happening in the world instead of react, and that he won't always need me to help him move in order to be interested. But for right now, my priority is to keep him healthy. And if I can keep him healthy, then we can progress gently. So movement lowers stress. Exactly, Andrea. Let's see if I click. Nicole says, I see, thank you. My understanding emotions can flow and moving in humans and horses. Yeah, and I see your comments longer, Nicole, but I'm new to Facebook Live, so I don't know how to see the whole thing. I'll have to work on that. Anyway, yes, movement lowers stress. It was one of the biggest key factors in doing the Pura Vida project in Costa Rica, and that movie will be out soon. I'm so excited to share it with you all. And it's one of my biggest challenges here with Atlas. Movement supports awareness. Yes, exactly, Beatrix. And how we manage that in the domestic world is interesting. I like to use as little pressure as possible. I prefer not to pick up my ropes. I prefer not to work in the round pen. I don't like to use pressure to motivate. I know I can, but if it really is the difference in quality of life every day for Atlas, if it's the thing that makes him feel like he can take a breath and enjoy life instead of reacting to every little sound he hears, then I'm going to do that for him. Hopefully, I figure out some way to get Atlas integrated into more of a herd where the horses will do that for me, where the other horses will stimulate his movement and his appreciation for moving every day to help him keep that stress lower. It's my goal. So I will continue working on it. I'm always open to thoughts if you guys have them. It's definitely new for me working with stallion type aggression. I've known aggressive horses in geldings and mares, but the damage they do when they fight is dramatically less than the damage caused by a stallion when he goes into full fight mode. So that really changes the kind of herd that we're willing to put them in a domestic world where we have small spaces. So those are my thoughts this morning. Tea time with Atlas. After I do the webinar today at noon, my life becomes a little bit more normal. I think the movie is almost done. We are getting to the end of the list of the million details that have to be finished before we release it. And then I can get back into helping Atlas move a little bit more. If I can help him move more, his quality of life becomes better. For those of you guys who watch the replay, I also have all of these up on YouTube on a channel there, the Taming Wild channel on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe. You'll notice today Atlas is much less interactive than he was last week. The ears move less. He's looking over at the camera less. He's hiding behind the tree more. These are little things that are interesting to notice from week to week. And then I assess what's different about the week. What have we done? How much movement has he had? How much interaction with friends? What kind of lifestyle factors affect how Atlas feels and how much he's willing to interact? So there we go. On that big breath, I'm going to say goodbye and good morning. Thank you for joining me for tea. And yes, Nicole, I can't wait to see you in October in Germany. And I will look forward to seeing you all in the various clinic tours and Tuesday morning tea with Atlas. I'll be back next week. And come to the webinar this afternoon if you can make it. 12 o'clock noon Pacific time, which is GMT -7. All right. Have a wonderful day, you guys.